host Jenny Woolsey. I'm an author, speaker and educator on diversity and mental well-being. Well, this week around the world is Facial Equality Week. Now I hear you say, what's that all about? It's not something you've heard of. Well, did you know that 1 in 5 people have something different about their face? They may have a mark or a scar, or they were born with a craniofacial syndrome, something that made their face grow differently. So have a think. Do you know someone who has something a bit different about their face? It's not your typical face. Do they have a scar? Maybe they had a dog bite, or maybe they've got acne scarring, or maybe they've got a birthmark. Maybe, like me, they were born with a craniofacial syndrome and have required surgeries to help fix that. Maybe they were born with a cleft lip or a palate. Something that just gives them a bit more of an unusual appearance. I'm sure if you looked around you, you would see someone. Now, did you know that 1 in 3 of those people who have some type of facial difference, sometimes doctors will call it a disfigurement or a deformity, but 1 in 3 of those people experience depression because of how they look, because your face affects your self-identity and your feelings of self-worth. Now, I can put my hand up for that. I have experienced depression because of how I've looked, particularly before my final surgeries, where society deemed me acceptable and I didn't cop the bullying and the staring as much as I did beforehand. And did you know that a quarter have also experienced hate crime? Imagine that. Because you've got a face that's different, people have been hostile towards you, have bullied you, have picked on you. And you can't hide your face. This is something that I learned very little with my craniofacial syndrome. My face was out in the world for everyone to see, and everyone had an opinion on it. Did they listen to little Jenny, what her opinion was, how she felt about having a face that was different? Do you think they cared? No. From a little tyke, from a little child, little toddler, society pointed at me. People pointed at me. They laughed at me. They called me names. In school, I was pushed over. I was picked last for teams. Even for dancing, which I was really, really good at, I was the last one sitting on the bench. High school was no different. How do you think that made me feel? It made me feel that I was worthless, that I was not a valuable human being. So today, I want to raise that with you. My eldest 2 children also have my craniofacial syndrome, and I have seen them battle their mental illnesses, their anxiety, their depression, and other psychiatric conditions. I have seen them picked on in playgrounds, little kids making fun of them, adults pointing at them. And as much as I, as their mum, has tried to shelter them and prevent it from happening, it still continues to happen in this world where looks, your face, seem to be a measure of your self-worth. Well, I think society needs to take a really hard look at itself. What do you think? Is how we look, how we should be, giving people status? Is that really a true mark of how worthwhile a person is, that just because they've been in a car accident and they've got a huge scar on their face, that they are a lower human being than someone that's said to have a beautiful face? Why is it that in jobs and employment, people with facial differences are still stared at? Why aren't they just part of the diversity of the workplace? Why is it that kids, up to 80%, are still being bullied in schools? Why isn't the education system stamping down on bullying and say, yeah, they have a face that's a bit different, it doesn't matter? Are they a nice kid? Do they include people? Do they like to do the things that everybody else likes to do? It's part of the diversity of the human race, and we should be embracing it. So Facial Equality Week is about equality for everybody. Everybody who has something different about their face needs to be seen as equal to the rest of humanity. Well, I would like to leave you with a few tips. I hope this has got you thinking, because most people do not think about facial differences unless you know someone, or you're like me and you were born with a craniofacial syndrome. Now, I was the first in my family, so you can imagine the shock of having a baby whose face hadn't formed correctly. And as a society that were telling my parents, hide her away, put her in the cupboard, don't bring her out, she's too different, we don't want to see her. Imagine how my parents felt. And then myself, looking at my children, being criticized for having my children, and then watching them suffer similar pain of ignorant people in society who think they have the right to pass on their judgments, their discrimination, their thoughts to me. Well, my 3 thoughts are: number 1, when you see someone with a facial difference, don't stare at them. I know we all like to look at someone who's different, and that's fine, but there is the difference between looking at someone and staring at them. Staring is this. And I copped a lot of that growing up. People even ran into poles and walls because they were staring at me. It's also happened to my children. And it's not fair. So when you see someone with a facial difference, just look them in the face, look them in the eyes, and treat them like a regular person. Talk to them in a regular way. Easy, isn't it? Then why isn't it so easy? It's just does my head in. All right, number 2. If you're an employee, think about the treatment of the person that you have employed. Thank you for employing them. And maybe if you've had someone come in with a facial difference and you haven't employed them, why not? Was it because of how they looked and not their credentials? You know, I remember when I got my first job, my face looked different. It was before my final surgery. I was 17. And my employer took me on my marks. And I actually went and had my final surgery while I was working. And then I went back and we all celebrated my new face. And I think about that, and I think about how cool it was that he actually took me on, even though I looked different. And the third tip, I guess, is we need to make society way more accepting of people's faces. We really need to stomp out the hate crime. We need to stomp out the bullying mentality, that because you have a face that's different, you deserve poor treatment. What do you think? So in schools, if you have a child who has a facial difference of some type, and you see bullying or you're seeing them being isolated, stamp it out. Get onto it. I remember a wonderful thing my children's kindies did. It started in kindy when the children were like 4, and the other kids were saying that they had big eyes and what was wrong with their faces, and immediately the kindy did a program on all faces are different, our faces are all wonderful. And I applaud that, because that needs to continue right through school. Well, I've left you with those tips to think about, but mainly if you see someone with a facial difference, give them a smile, look them in the eyes, so they know that they are valuable and they are respected. They have a job to do here on this earth. They've been put on this earth for a reason. They have a life's purpose, a life path. And with everyone's encouragement, they will be able to achieve that. If you liked what I said, and hopefully you did, come join me. My website is www.jennywoolsey.com. I have a book, Ride High Pineapple. Let me find it for you. This is my book about a teenager, 14-year-old Izzy, who has my and my children's craniofacial syndrome. It's about how she rises up against bullies through skateboarding, and also her best friend. I highly recommend you get a copy, ebook, or a paperback from all good online booksellers like Amazon. We'll love your support, and check me out. All right, thanks everyone. Have a great afternoon.